Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Susan, and tonight Philip is my co-host. Is has the night off, so I'm here with guests Jan Daemon, who is there, and Sinfully Cerebral, who's down here. And we have a great live stream for you guys tonight. We are talking about a comment we got on our last live stream. I hope you guys were here for that, but if you missed it, don't worry. You can go back and watch it later. But because we'll walk you through what we're talking about now. I can see a ton of people in the comments, and we'll be in a minute to say hi to everybody. But let's just go over what we are actually talking about tonight. Our last live stream was about what is woke, the history of woke, and why some people have a really hard time with it. And we got a comment on that live stream. If you saw our thumbnail for this one and you read it, that's the actual comment. But I'm going to read it for you now, word for word, and I will find that for you. Hang on. I do not have it. I didn't have it up in front of us. And it is, where's my, okay. It's so tiny on the actual thumbnail, but here it is. It's a two-parter. And this person wrote, among other things, woke is a license to be racist toward white people without consequence. And the second sentence is, much of wokeness is also just delusional and the normalization of what are actually disorders. So we're going to talk about the first part. Among other things, woke is a license to be racist toward white people without consequences. And I am coming back over here. Welcome, Kochi, to members of the channel. Appreciate it. Okay, maybe before we get into it, because I know, Lee, I want to hop right over to you first, because I know that you just the other day encountered a racist situation. And do you want to talk to us about that, or do you want to do that first? Or do you want to say hi to people? It's up to you.
We'll get into that, and then we'll jump into the chat and say hi to everybody.
Okay.
So earlier this week, as some of you know, I work with children. I help them get to school. I work with some homeless children, making sure that they're getting to and from where they need to be, whether it's appointments, school, etc. So one morning after I had finished dropping off my charge to school and was waiting for them to finish so I can take them home, I had pulled off into a development that I frequent often. It's a regular apartment complex. I'm there maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and this has been going on for about 5 months. If anybody who knows Pokemon Go, this apartment complex has about 5 Pokestops and a gym over there. So, I mean, it gives me something to do. During this time in the morning while I was waiting, I ended up parking next to somebody's car, and as they were leaving, I moved the van over to the next closest car just so that there wasn't any empty spaces. So I wasn't just out in the open. And after I had moved the van, I was in the trunk, I was cleaning things out, just keeping myself busy. But this guy, he I guess felt very suspicious about one me just being in the parking lot because before any like he left. So I parked next to his car and then he left, and within 5 to 7 minutes he had turned around, and by this point I had already moved my vehicle to the next closest car next to him, which I guess happened to be his girlfriend's truck, and I had no idea, right? But mind you, I've seen that truck, I've parked next to that truck many times. I'm guessing in the past I had arrived much later than like much later in the morning, so he was probably already
Yeah.
gone. It just happened to be one of the days where he was leaving late. So he comes back and parks on the opposite side of her because there was still another opening. and I see him just sitting in the car, staring at me, looking over, and I'm by this point in out of the trunk, got back into the van, and I'm cleaning stuff up in the van. And all of a sudden, the woman comes downstairs and she starts fumbling through her truck. I see her getting things like her wallet that she left in there, and whatever other things she might have considered valuable. After that, I see her get into his truck and they start having a confrontation, like he's yelling at her or something like that. And maybe about 10 minutes later, the police show up. So the police start talking to her, and she's pretty much just like, she doesn't really know anything. And she looked really fed up, honestly.
And you're
And the
thinking
police,
this is just them, like there's nothing, it's nothing to do with you. It's just some
yeah, I
weird
had no
domestic like
idea.
issue.
I was minding my business. I didn't talk to them. I was just, I mean, if you're looking at me, I'm going to look back. Like, don't think that.
Especially if you're yelling.
Yeah, especially if they're having a fight.
So I didn't get involved. I was minding my business. But the cop still comes over to me in the van and he's like, yeah, we're getting reports of a suspicious person. Can you tell me what you're doing and why you're over here and stuff like that? And I'm taken aback because, mind you, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning. It's like 9:15, 9:30 at this point. And I'm just like, I'm minding my business. I'm not doing anything. I don't have no problems. And the officer agreed with me. He was like, okay, well, this is private property, but I'm like, there's no signs. It doesn't seem like you're having any issues. And they did talk to the property managers, which had already driven around and was looking for this suspicious person that the guy had reported. They had seen the van, and because they were familiar with it, they drove
Your
off.
van.
They had seen the van that I drive, and they had no problems with it, and they returned back to the office. So after the police officer had his conversation with me and was like, pretty much, okay, well, you're okay. If they do ask you to, they might come around and ask you to leave or whatever. And I'm like, okay. I'm not doing anything but cleaning up, resting, and minding my business.
Which you've been doing for 5 months.
For 5 months.
To the point
where I had never seen this boy before. This guy, I've never seen him.
But for 5 months, to the point where the management knew about you, knew you were no threat, knew that you just hung out there during this time period, and never caused any problems. The custodians
out there have even spoken to me. We've had back and forths and stuff like that. I've actually picked up children in that neighborhood, which is one of the reasons, because it's literally right next to the school, which is why I was over there. I mean, so I was just really shocked and blown away at this point, but I didn't move. I didn't allow this situation to be like, oh, well, there's people over here who are intimidated by my presence and want to control my body. Yeah. I didn't allow them to make it so that space wasn't available to me, right? So then about maybe another 5 minutes later, the property manager finally pulled up to the van and was just pretty much like, hey, we're going to have to ask you to leave. This guy is calling the police again. And I'm just sitting here like, for what? Like, he didn't say anything to me. He didn't approach me or anything like that. But as it was moving forward, you could hear that they were talking about, like, he was afraid that, like, his girlfriend was cheating on him, or I was some kind of suspicious person that was going over there to visit her because I happened to park next to her car. And if it wasn't that situation, then I was there to rob them. Mind you, I didn't approach her truck. I wasn't looking in her stuff. I wasn't approaching him or anything like that. But he thought that because he was intimidated and insecure, it was up to him to remove me from that location, even though he was already leaving. He was going off to do his own day and do his own stuff. Yeah. But he was so bothered, he turned around and created a problem. And then he thought that he could exercise his rights to move me, control me, and tell me what to do, even though he doesn't know me. He has no idea who I am. I could have been somebody who was homeless and was just looking for, like, to change or something like that. For those of you who don't know, homelessness in the United States is 650,000 plus right now. So the amount of people living out of their cars just looking for a safe place to make sure that they're okay and they're not getting beat up on or harassed by other people is astronomical, right? Mm-hmm. He also doesn't know the van is clearly labeled with our company's information on it.
Right.
He also doesn't know if I'm waiting for somebody to come out. The police officer did ask me that, and I told him that I wasn't waiting for anybody. But just the simple fact that he felt so comfortable in his privilege to use literal state power to try and decide what should happen and what I should do when I'm no danger, I'm causing no problems, I have no confrontations, and I've been there for more than 5 months, to the point where the property manager, the second time she came back, she was like, yeah, when I was spinning around, I was looking for this suspicious van and I couldn't find
Right.
them, so I went back to the front. I was like, honestly, like, there's literally no signs here that say private property. There's nothing that says we can't park here or anything like that. None of that stuff. So after I did eventually move, and I confronted her again at the front of the complex, I asked her, where are these signs that say that this is private property and I have to move because of what you guys are saying? And she looked visibly shook, because now she's in a situation where she realizes that this white man, this young boy who is insecure, felt like he needed to cause a problem. And this woman, she's literally shaking in front of me. And I feel bad because, like, I don't want to escalate the problem, because that's how people get shot or arrested and stuff like that.
Right.
Thankfully, I have no record. I have no issues on my background or anything like that, which I can't with the job that I'm doing and stuff like that, because we get regularly fingerprinted and drug tested and stuff like that. But just the simple fact that people believe that their discomfort is enough to go out of the way to cause harm for other people is the underlying problem. And this is when we start moving into this space of what is racism and how do we define it and how do we look at it and stuff like that. I think Susan was saying something when we were in our meeting, talking about how you can define it in a few different ways, but how I look at it personally, and how a lot of how it's talked about online, is structures of power, and how that power, who has the power, and how that power is being exercised. If you guys can show me an instance in the U.S. history where Black people predominantly held power, controlled rules and laws that suppressed and oppressed other people and held them down, then maybe we can talk, have a conversation about Black people being racist and stuff like that. But this is just another, like, tall tale sign of a white person who felt like they were right and entitled to just go out and cause problems. And who knew if that cop was feeling bold or feeling heroic and wanted a medal or something like that, and decided to just shoot me and ask questions later, right? They don't care about those.
That's the thing, Lee, is that, you know, you were saying I was standing my ground, I've done nothing wrong, I don't have a record, and all of those things are great. But the fact is, in any situation like that, you don't know what somebody else is going to do. You can end up dead simply because somebody decided that they wanted to exercise power.
When I was finally leaving out of that place, he's literally smiling at me, feeling very triumphant. He's like, I see you, just being very antagonistic.
I made you move. I made you move. When the management, who's, you know, the person with the power to decide, had known about you and said, you're no threat. We don't care. It's not as though our parking lot is always full and there's, you know, the people are coming and trying to get their spaces and you're taking up a space. None of that problem.
It's a clean space.
Yeah.
And what really gets me is the location that this apartment complex and this school that has been recently built in like the last 10 years. My family actually lived in that location. So I grew up in that space on that farm where there was a row of trailers, and I hung out with the chickens, and literally it was just so mind-boggling that, because I work in another city in my state. I lived out there. I went to school out there. That's where I went to university and stuff like that. So for this to happen, it was just so, like, I was just mind boggled. And it's February. It's Black History Month. I'm like,
Yeah.
we can't even get a break during the 1 month of the year that we're allowed to talk about Black history without being censored or feeling like we're doing too much.
Yeah, how dare you?
I'm really disturbed by the fact that it's this power play where like they're trying to like have the power over you and claiming that you're putting their safety in danger when like you are clearly the one whose safety is in danger. And it makes me sad to hear that you say, oh, I have to be the one that doesn't escalate this, I have to be the one that walks on eggshells, or I'm gonna, but yet they're claiming that they're afraid of you. So it's like, what the hell's going
No
on
consequence to him, whether I get shot, whether I get arrested, whether anything happens to me bodily, no consequence to him as long as he's happy and he feels fulfilled,
there?
right?
Yeah.
It's just very disturbing, honestly. And people want to talk about like wokeness is just an excuse for Black people to be racist towards white people. In that instance where I'm minding my business, what opportunity do I have to oppress him? Which is why I was talking about the insecurities. His girlfriend, when she left, she looked fed up. She looked exhausted dealing with him, which just goes to show probably what kind of person he is. And to me, when people do stuff like that, it's just them admitting the things that they do when she's not around, you know? So I
Interesting.
just,
Yeah.
thankfully, I did walk out away from that situation safe, but now I can't go over there. And mind you, like I said, I was playing Pokemon Go, minding my business. What happens when we're no longer allowed to go into these public spaces and have fun or live our lives and stuff like that because other people are scared or insecure just because
Right, they gotta infringe on your constitutional rights.
Yeah, because
Yep.
he has some sort of problem, which obviously she was even fed up with. You know, I mean, you shouldn't even have to know the details of what's going on with them. That's none of your business, but they're making it your business by interfering
being Black
with you.
in America is literally making sure that you're aware of yourself, aware of your surroundings, aware of other people and their feelings. No matter how much I might smile, how kind I might come off, if it's uncomfortable for them, then they have a problem with it, and then they make me suffer because of it.
But that's another thing. Why do you have to be extra smiley? Why do you have to look extra safe? Like, oh, I'm not a danger. Why do you have to do anything for your own safety?
So funny that you bring that up. So I don't know if any of you follow the Black Forager on Instagram. She's a very lovely young woman who goes into the forest and picks mushrooms and other.
Oh, does she sing like songs as she like picks stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
I
she
watch
puts
her.
on
She's
a little
lovely.
bit rosy cheeks and stuff like that. So she's had an interview and she's gone out of her way to talk about how she dresses in this particular sense while she's in the woods to look disarming so that other people don't consider her dangerous or suspicious, because all she's out there trying to do is literally forage for food because prices are ridiculous. Like, you can't even eat. Like, what are we supposed to do? It's too dangerous now, you know?
That's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to. I mean, you should be able to be and look. I was looking up to see if I follow her. Be and look how you want. You shouldn't have to think, how comfortable are people around me? How do I have to be?
That's such a weird way to live. I don't think anybody should be living like that. That's completely backwards and opposite of,
and there's other,
it doesn't make sense.
There's other marginalized people who do the same thing. I mean, in the LGBTQ community as well, like having to think about, how am I coming, who's going to be upset or uncomfortable or whatever because of what I'm doing when I'm not doing anything to anybody else. I'm just existing.
Right.
I'm so sorry that you experienced that, and people have been writing a lot of comments in here. I know I saw one from Andy that said, "I admire your patience." That was a while ago.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I've seen something from Becca. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mia, for the super chat. That's my sister. She's in the.
That's your sister.
That's lovely.
Hi, Mia. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have some people who decided to show up and come out. I actually sent out the link to everybody, like, come hang out, guys.
Oh, that is so sweet. I saw your story. Um, and we also have to thank. Okay, so I said thank you to Kochi. Is it Kochi or Koche? For joining the channel. Welcome. And Philip always does this. He does such a good job. I'm terrible at this part because I
Halloween
forget to do it.
Mom.
Halloween
did,
Mom, thank you so much.
membership. Yeah.
Thank you for gifting. I think you gifted 3 memberships.
And she joined. Yeah. Memberships and joined.
Nice. Thank you. And really appreciate it. And there's Mark. We have a one of our fabulous moderators in here. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I don't know if Elise is in here, but maybe later. But let's start looking at some comments. So hello to everybody. Thank you for coming in. And I know Philip would have already said thank you to everybody who super chats, who joins, who just being here. I mean, I'm always so happy when people just come and join in on the conversation. So I agree.
Appreciate you guys showing up.
I agree with
out.
Andy, exploring the holos. Andy, who said, "I admire your patience," because Lee, that has to get old. That has to get tiring. And you know,
I mean, I've received hate comments from people. I've had people who literally gone out of their way to say, "Oh, I can't talk to you. You got that nappy black people hair." Literally. Oh. For no reason. Instead of just going on about their business and living their life, they had to go out of their way to make sure they said the nastiest comment to me so that they knew that they felt disgusted with my being. And it's just like, you grow up in this space where it's like, you don't know where you're safe. You don't know who you can confide in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My sister said, thank you guys for saying hi. She can't say anything because the chat is restricted and she's just joining and she's just getting new and stuff.
Oh,
like that.
That's right, because it's only, you have to have been a member for 24 hours. So like a subscriber, not a member.
Yeah.
You have to have been a subscriber. Oh, you're welcome and we're glad you're here. So hi everybody else who's in here. I'm not even going to go through them all individually because we have too many people, but oh, Andy, again, here's another comment by Andy who said, if you smile, he's definitely going to think you're going after his girlfriend. I mean, you can't win sometimes, you know?
Can't. And I was just telling them behind the scenes, like, for me, when I'm nervous, I smile when I'm nervous. And that was actually brought to my attention by a teaching aide when I was in like the 4th or 5th grade. I was out in the hallway and they were reprimanding me. And she was just like, don't smile. You smile every time you're nervous and stuff like that. And that was one of the moments that helped me become self-aware. I realized in that moment that my body language is literally speaking to people, even though my mouth isn't moving, even though they're not listening to my thoughts and stuff like that. And it just puts you into this perspective where it's like, dang, am I allowed to smile? Or if I have resting bitch face, are they going to act like there's a whole different type of problem, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think in your head, you go through so many things. It's like, what do I do? What do I do? How am I supposed to look? Because how you look, how you express yourself can get you into trouble. Bad things can happen.
I have that resting asshole face, and growing up, my parents, my mother would always like get after me, like, look at your face, it's such a sour look, go look in the mirror, and just like get after me just for the look on my face. I'm like, I'm feeling fine, thank you.
But if it can cause people to, I mean, it's fine if you don't have any repercussions, but if it can cause people to, you know.
Oh, she was really pissed about it. Like, she was very seriously like fuck you.
All that is their internal shadow. That's all that is. That projection. They see what your face looks like and they start thinking about what they believe you're thinking about, and then they believe their own narrative, even though they haven't asked you, they haven't sat down and been like, are you okay? Let's talk about it. Like, I mean, sometimes like I have people who have resting bitch face and I'm like, okay, your face is kind of scrunched up. Let's talk about it. Are you good? Are you not good? You're good? Okay, fine. You don't have to change your face or nothing. I'm just making sure that, you know, we can communicate about it, you know?
Right.
For some people, it's immediate hostility. They want to escalate the problem, and then they don't even want a solution. They just want you to know that they're pissed off because of their own thoughts.
Yeah, I think that it comes down to that's the racism coming out, that they, for whatever reason, want to put you down, want to make sure that you understand your place, that they have a higher position. Mark said something good. Mark said, right, if you're unfriendly, you're dangerous. If you're too friendly, you're dangerous and playing some angle. You know, there isn't a right answer. And when you are not in a position of power, when something bad can happen to you, consequences, that is a bad position to be in. You know?
Right, because you're at the mercy of the other person's reality tunnel. And if their reality tunnel is shaped by society and society tells them that this is a dangerous situation, then you're just kind of helpless in that situation.
To literally be leaving for probably work and to turn around and then have an entire problem with me for no reason because of your own thoughts, your own insecurities. Like, do some mirror work, please. Do some shadow work. Like, you really need to start integrating these ideas of why some other man, and I was in and out of the van, in the trunk, moving things around. Not that it was any of their business what I was doing, but like, really?
Yeah.
Lara says nowadays it's about what one doesn't like. Yeah. So they want to try and keep everybody separated. And no matter how much we're talking about, like, oh, we're moving into this new stage of consciousness, people have to start becoming self-aware, we have to love ourselves, we have to love each other and stuff like that. That's uncomfortable for people because people would rather hate themselves and they would rather other people also hate themselves. I'm not subscribing to that, and I'm not going to succumb to that. I don't have to overreact, of course, and it's unfortunate because it would be great if I was allowed to defend myself to that point, you know? But unfortunately, I would still be the problem. I would have been the aggressor. I would have been some kind of, in the wrong somehow, no matter what I did.
Yeah, I hear that from Black women saying, like, how often, like, they can't, like, express and defend themselves how they would really like to because they'll just be written off as like the quote unquote angry Black woman like archetype, and so they're not able to express themselves in the way that they should be allowed to.
Yeah. Well, there is so much more that we can say about this. I can't believe we've already hit the halfway mark, and I want to move on to the second part of this comment because this is another whole thing. But when we have our members stream right after this, you both are going to be in it. We're just going to stay right here and go over there. We're going to continue talking about this same subject because we have so much, plus some other members things to go over, some exciting things. But I think also that these are important topics to the point where we need to continue. I think I would do that for sure, especially because I really want to talk from the Neogenian perspective and how we see things. And because our channel is really designed for the Neogenian community. Anybody can come. You don't have to be Neogenian to be here. But what we offer the community is a place for community, for one thing, but also discussions of the from the Neogenian perspective of basically living life as a Neogenian and all that it entails, learning about it and living it. And if you've been around for a while, you know that we absolutely envision and are promoting and creating a world where everyone has the same, is treated with respect, equality, and is given the same tools to self-actualize, to go after what they want to be, express themselves the way they want to, without having other people say, you can't do it like that because I don't like that for whatever reason. That's really important to us, and it's important to our system. So I wanted to, Pooks just said, express yourself. I think the little hearts over the bottom thing. And by the way, hi Pooks, and I hope you're going to be in the members because we have more to talk about, the stuff that we talked about last time as well. Yes, express yourself. Now I can see it. So let's move on to the second part, and then sort of not just let this discussion go. Know that we will bring it back because there's so much more to say in this regard. We did get a comment from Michael Trombley who said, who was talking about, oh, here's this one comment. And I know, Michael, that you've said things previous up the chat. I only got to glance at them, but listen to this one. There are currently 70,000?
70,000. Yes.
70,000, not 7,000 slaves in Africa. 20,000 are children. And the slavers are also Black currently. And I think that that is something we could talk about. Lee, you were talking about Africa. And that kind of plays into the who can be racist thing. I think in North America, I really, really, for sure, would expect the power aspect to be included. And that sort of redefines it in a particular way that is the most useful for addressing racism here. I personally don't think that it is accessible to discuss it without that. I just don't see it, that the point of it. But Africa's a different story.
I'm just going to make one comment on that, so we don't have to go into it too deeply. Michael, if you're talking about that, then you have to look at what Western colonial powers are playing in those lands. What is the effect of colonialism in that situation? We can talk about racism, right? When it comes to Africa, there's an entire movie, Hotel Rwanda, if you want to talk about like the Hutus and the Tutsis and stuff like that. So we're not saying that there isn't a scenario where Black people can't have power and oppress other Black people, or Africans oppress other Africans. That's not what we're saying. But we have to look at reality. We don't want to have an argument of semantics. We don't want to erase nuances. We want to look at what's actually happening, who has power, how that power is being used, and who's suffering and who's benefiting. If we're going to have a genuine conversation about it, that's all it is.
Yeah, and Michael also said there shouldn't be slaves or racism. It's ridiculous. I don't see either one, really just people taking advantage when they can. And I agree completely that there shouldn't be. I think ultimately, and this is why racism starts with someone thinking that they're superior, but the power part comes in when they want to benefit from it. So it's like, I'm better than you. I get to stay up here and have these privileges and you don't, and I'm going to keep that power balance because I benefit.
You were talking about like the isms. You were talking about part of our main goal is tackling the isms, racism, sexism, homophobia, things like that, right?
Yeah.
So that all plays into this.
Yeah, absolutely. And but we have to, in order to get rid of the things that we know are terrible for society, that ultimately keep people from actualizing, keeping the whole collective from growing. We know that we have to talk about it in order to do it. You have to focus on it. You have to address it. You can't say it's not really a problem, or it's only a problem for people who talk about it too much, or we need to transcend that. I mean, yes, we do need to transcend it, but you don't transcend it magically. It doesn't just happen. You have to work at it. So you got to
go through it. You got to struggle and overcome it. I just said
that. You have to go through it. It's a process. It's even though it's tiring, it's this
is the dialectics working for us.
This is how we move forward. So you can't be somebody who says, well, if we stop focusing on it, it's the focusing on it that's causing the problem. What is it that we were talking about, that really good channel Ashani? I think she says, it's the focusing on the problem is not the problem. It's the problem that's the problem. Racism is the problem, not focusing
such a weird
on
backwards logic.
It's so
backwards. There's a problem, let's ignore it, and it'll just go away.
Right, because if we focus on it, it'll keep the problem going. No, the focusing on the problem is not the problem. The problem is the problem. Okay, we need to move on, as much as we're going to come back to this at a later date, I think. So yeah, Laura, exactly, yes. When I heard that, I thought, wow, yeah, that's exactly right. You can't not talk about it. So let's go on. I'm going to read the second, where did I leave it up? The second part. of the Jan, you must have. Oh no, here it is. Okay, here's the second part of this person's comment. Much of wokeness is also just delusional. Remember that word delusional, and the normalization of what are actually disorders. And I'm going to tell you right now that when I interpret that, and I could be wrong because the person didn't specify, but
They weren't explicit.
as soon as I see something like that, I immediately think, delusion and mental disorders. Yes, Kate just said homophobia. I think anti-LGBTQ, specifically trans. So that's the way I took it. That's, I think, the discussion that we want to have.
I mean, I feel like it's saying it without saying it. I mean, there could be some speculation. They could also be encompassing neurodivergent people within that too, but by chance, but probably not, because one of the biggest typical anti-trans arguments is that this is, for a trans person to seek trans care, that's a delusion, it's a fantasy, and allowing them to transition is just pretty much just aiding them in their delusion and their fantasy. And really, it's just like a mental disorder that needs to be treated and made to go away.
I think that one of the major parts is, what does it look like to be healthy mentally? Like, who is born out of the womb with the ability to perfectly articulate themselves, understand and interact with the world and everything like that? What is that? Like, what is this standard? That's almost seems delusional to me. This idea that these people are perfect and have some kind of, I don't know, perfect algorithm running in their mind on how to be a person and get a job and pay their taxes and actualize themselves. What is that?
I mean, it's like the Christo-fascist heteronormative couples that when they raise children, they assign an identity to their children immediately before they're even conceptualized. We're going to have a boy. His name is going to be Johnny. He's going to be a football player and take over dad's company. And it's like, what if that kid is not any of that at all? Like, what are you going to do?
What if they are the world's next fashion designer that changes how we wear clothes and creates a medicine that heals people? You have no idea.
No. And we were talking about earlier, Lee, when you were talking about your experience and the focusing on how that guy was just the root why he was trying to get you to move. He was feeling uncomfortable. And I feel like there's the same thing that applies to transphobic stuff. And I actually found a little quote on Twitter today, and it's by just a random Twitter user called, her name is Charlotte Clymer, I think. But I felt like this was like nailed exactly like what we've been talking about with this discomfort thing. So she says, every transphobic argument can basically be boiled down to, I actually don't know the science at all or have a good argument here, but trans people challenge my long-held view of the world, and it's very uncomfortable, and everyone should be expected to move around my discomfort.
Yeah.
I agree with that very much.
That is the voice that you hear coming from people with their arguments. Oh, thank you so much, Morg. Thank you so much. Hello, welcome, and we really appreciate your super chat.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Where if you just came in, we just started the conversation, the second half of our discussion on the comment we got on the last live stream. So this bit about uncomfortable, I that reminds me also of what Lee was saying about like what is mentally healthy, what is comfortable. And I was thinking in terms of the trans person. Oh, by the way, I'm really sorry. I'm trying not to move my arm with the bracelets. I didn't take them off, and I apologize if it's making a lot of noise.
Oh no, we're fine.
Okay, so here's the thing. Whenever I see one of the accounts that I follow, like a trans person who talks about their experiences, this is particularly on Instagram, it's sometimes TikTok, and what they've gone through, actually anybody, non-binary, whatever. Of course, there's Jeffrey Marsh, who I've mentioned many times, who really, really talks to you, and it lets you know the difference between somebody who's living the life the way they not only want to, but really need to, and living in joy with themselves. I mean, Jeffrey's a joy to see, just them being themselves, and that and sharing the joy, living by example. And we've discussed before how repulsive it is, the hatred that Jeffrey gets for living their life the way that brings them joy, and what that does. You can see the projection in the comments that they get. Terrible comments that, up to, you should unalive yourself.
The weird thing with when heteronormative people who have these transphobic tendencies or are transphobic, when they view trans people, it's related to like your identity, but like more so that coordinates with your genitals, which is automatically, associated with sex. So it's just like there's this automatic application of just like, well, there must be some sexual deviancy going on here. Surely this is like a mental disorder or something like that. When like never in history, I mean, at times there have been in history where they say this is a disorder, but there's no actual scientific like proof that this is a mental disorder. And we have much proof to show that when we allow people to live their lives, they're much healthier. They got that mental health. That's what helps them, live a fulfilling life. It's unfortunate that society is just so warped, and they have to deal with that. Not only do they have to deal with the transition like inwards, but like outwards as well. And in the sad situation of Next Benedict, who was a 16-year-old child who was bullied and beaten and eventually passed. And the details is they didn't exactly die of the beating, supposedly at this point in the investigation, but whether or not they died from the beating or they ended up offing themselves as a direct result of the emotional pain from that, I still feel like it's the same thing.
It's related.
And it's related. And this is the statistic that we're trying to avoid, where people are so overcome by the shadow of society and by the ugliness of society that there's no out, there's no will, and there's no way.
Yeah, in terms of, what Lee said in the beginning about, mental health, and then I added the part about living your life in joy with yourself. It's not the people who are doing that who are unaliving themselves. It's the people who are not allowed to, who are being forced to be something other than what they are.
I think, Susan, yesterday we were talking, and you were saying pretty much the opposite of mental disorder is that who goes out and lives in a state that allows them to be in a healthy state of mind.
Yeah.
And as Neogenians, we of course cultivate inner star actualization. And part of that is becoming your true self. We're on a path to apotheosis. So to hold someone back and stop them from being allowed to experience themselves, to make mistakes, and that's for me one of the biggest things. Another anti-trans argument is detransitioning. And I think that what people need to learn is that people are allowed to make mistakes. People are allowed to regret the choices that they made. It isn't fair that 1% of people who are going through transitioning and they decide that they no longer want to, mind you, most of that is because they lose support or funding and they can no longer go through it. This small minority of people who no longer decide to transition and want to detransition, now the 99% are no longer allowed to be themselves. How awful and ugly is that? We want to talk about racism, these laws and this power that prohibits people from exercising their will, because also, as being Neogenian, will forming is very important for us to be able to make our own choices, to decide things whether we are right or wrong, and to learn to overcome those consequences. And instead of just building a society where people who wish to detransition and do it in a healthy way, instead of just doing that, like, oh, okay, that's what you want to do, no problem. Guess what? We have the science and the medicine for that, so that's not really a big deal. Instead, they want to dead everything. They want to end it. They want to cancel it and make it so that nobody can see it and it doesn't exist. I mean, humanity is allowed to evolve. We don't have to stay primitive forever. We should be allowed to explore many facets of life, and people should be allowed to regret the choices that they make, and it shouldn't hold them back from living a fulfilling life. They should be like, wow, I thought that I wanted this. Because if you look online, there are plenty of trans presenting individuals who are doing it for the popularity or so that they can have attention and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
they call them trans trenders.
yeah, exactly. And that's just one facet of what's going on online. Now, is it healthy? Is that good? I mean, no, not necessarily. But instead of making sure that people have access to healthcare, doctors, education, instead they want people to be ignorant and they want people to be oppressed. Why? Like, it just absolutely insane. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that the thing there is that people who want to control others because they're uncomfortable, because they don't like it, because it doesn't fit their religious narrative, what they want to do is make it so that it's not visible in public at all, ever, so that nobody sees it, because they think, I think some of them truly believe that if they keep it so that it's just not seen in public, possibly like, in ancient times, that young children won't become whatever it is they don't like, instead of understanding that this is not, it doesn't make it not happen. They think that, oh, it's a mental disorder, therefore if you're exposed to it somehow, you're going to catch that mental disorder.
Right, just get off TikTok and you'll go back to your original gender that you're supposed to be.
If we don't allow it in public, if we don't allow, and if nobody can see anybody looking different than the two genders,
The binary,
right?
Yeah.
I see, that's so weird, because like I've always felt confused about my gender throughout my whole life, but there was never terminology for it, like for being non-binary.
Yeah.
And just feeling confused about, like, am I a man, am I a woman? And then it's been exposure for me to people talking about being non-binary, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And I'm looking it up, and then after a while I'm like, oh shit, that's me. This is this explains what I've been experiencing. I just never had the words for it before,
because there wasn't
till
one.
Now
there wasn't one,
but it was existing.
it existed. It's always existed, and that's what the people who don't like it are resisting. They refuse to believe the truth, which is that it has always been there. It's just that anybody who didn't meet that norm was killed. They were attacked and killed. They were ousted from society.
And are still.
It was, yeah, well, it's
unfortunately, absolutely.
Well, they are still, but the difference is that because very brave individuals started to come forward and said, this is me, this is how I'm going to live in public for people to see, then others who were feeling that same way said, oh, there's other people like me. And then more brave people started to come out. And that's where we are at this point. I mean, it's been going on for decades now with the fight toward it. But as we were talking earlier, this is just another progression that we're going through to get it to where it becomes the expected. It's just part of society. It's just part of what people
I think the right to self-actualization and inner-actualization should be a protected right for people.
Absolutely.
And everything under that definition, including trans care and this, that, and the other.
Yes, and it will be that is absolutely the Neogenian perspective on society, on life, on understanding the inherent importance of people to express themselves however they are. And of course, this comes without saying that it's without hurting yourself or others. I mean,
I hate that we have to say that. I
Me
hate
too.
how people
Me too.
go there. They're like, oh, so you get to just do whatever you want. And like, it's like that and hurt people. It's like, what? Why does your brain go there?
Yeah,
I know
just
why. Seems so uninnovative to me and just uninspiring.
Yeah, I mean,
people think that way.
It should go without saying that you're not going to impede anybody else. But
the public is for all of us. It's not, and this is what kind of kills me, because what they want to do is they want to have this very limited reality tunnel, and they don't want anybody to confront the reality tunnel. So when they leave the house, they want to be able to impose their ideas on how other people express themselves outside. And you can see this in other countries and stuff like that. In the past, there are places that you weren't even allowed to hold hands or kiss in public without the threat of going to jail or being beaten alive, So it's just kind of one of these situations where, why is it that these people who are afraid of themselves, and earlier we were talking about just allowing people to live in joy, it's like they want you to be guilty because they are suppressing themselves, because they choose not to. Nobody's telling you that because you have queer feelings, you have to go out and live a queer life. Nobody's saying that. But you don't get to hate on people who do go out of their way to live their truth and explore themselves, make mistakes, and need help. We're allowed to break ourselves and say, dang, I messed up, and the people around me are allowed to care about me and want to support me back into a healthy space. You don't get to say, oh well, look, you did that, now you're all broken, guess what, just suffer for the rest of your life. This is what society is for. We're allowed to come together and help each other. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't think people see our perspective, what we as Neogenians live with as somebody who understands what it is that we're doing here, as the one mind who is experiencing itself in all of us together. And we get that, but we have to remember that nobody else understands that. Nobody else has that built in. So they're coming from their own perspectives, which is that we don't get to explore ourselves. What is this exploring ourselves thing that we keep talking about?
That sounds like some lib woke bullshit.
Yeah. Right, yeah, because they don't know what it is that we're doing.
That's bourgeoisie. It's for capitalists. Self-expression is for capitalism.
They're coming from a, whether they know it or not, usually a very religiously conditioned view of existence. Even if they're not religious, that's what they've been taught, that there's this life and then possibly the afterlife.
That's a whole nother thing that I never understood, because they're like, you only live once, but when you die here, you're going to exist somewhere else and experience things somewhere else, but you're not alive. That's not life. Don't think of it like that. You're just supposed to be a servant. That's strange. That's insane. We don't even have to really get into that too much. But
that's another live stream. We'll do it again.
But we're in the last 4 or 5 minutes, and there's some super chats that came up. So I want to say thank you to Buddy Friendo for the awesome $10 and the sticker that you sent. And thank you, Storm the Delta, for we need a new and better world. Absolutely. We are on our way to building that. Every single last one of you play a part in the ripple. Every time we are having these conversations, every time you're going out of your way to be calm, to evaluate yourself, introspection, integration, just relearning things that you thought you knew, but there's new information. Just every time you go out of your way to illuminate yourself and illuminate your surroundings, we are making the world a better place. Never doubt that. We are doing this. It's just that the greater the light, the greater the darkness. Now all that's happening is that we are truly seeing how dark the world is. It's not about, oh, well, guess what? There's a bunch of slaves over there. Yes, there are, and we need to do something about it. We're not going to not talk about it. We need to change the world.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Well said. And a really good note to leave on is the feeling of being overwhelmed and depressed and thinking that it's too much. The darkness is too great. Yesterday was tough. I talked to Jan last night and also to Lee, and it can be really, really hard. And I always say this, but yesterday was very emotional after Jan's live stream, and it comes down to what Lee just said, that we're recognizing how dark the darkness is, and it just means we continue to do what we do. It is tiring. Progress is tiring. But there's no escape from it. You can't be that person who says, you know what, I'm just too tired. Let's just carry on the way we were, which is the way that those people who are very religiously oriented and don't like change, and they don't want to be made uncomfortable by the progress that's being made. We can't do that. If we do that, all the marginalized people are just tossed aside.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just going to continue a cycle of oppression, pain, and then people are going to be traumatized. And when that's all that's allowed to be, then yes, the hellscape that is Earth currently will continue to descend into the 18 layers, or however you want to say it. Because we have to change it.
Because if you do that, you are not focusing on the collective. You're not recognizing that we are a collective and that everyone is a part of it. So, Pook said a revolve or
I see it. I see you guys' comments. I really appreciate you guys. It's just really hard to look at the comments and then be in the stream without breaking the what we're saying and stuff like that. I really appreciate you guys' support. You guys are being awesome for tonight. It's just really hard when you just want to, take care of yourself. You want to take care of your family. You want to find the people that you love. You want to go out on trips. You want to see the beautiful world that is all around us. You want to just live life and be happy and cry with the people you want to cry with and laugh at the people you laugh with. What's wrong with that? But instead, people would rather oppress you, steal your resources, prevent you from actualizing, stop you from being you, make you feel guilty. It's just absurd.
It's sociopathic.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, and yes, choosing. Hi, Scorpy. Choosing to evolve, choosing to continue to expand our consciousness and to share that, so that we get more people who understand that, more people who understand the world that we not only are going to create, but we have to create if we are going to survive this. That we, that we are a collective. It can't be overstated. You can't talk about it enough. So, and we are the change. Yes, we are, Pooks. And on that note, we are going to just end this stream and hop into the member stream in a few minutes. The link for it, it's a member at any level. To the member of the channel for any level can come to it. The link is on the community board. So we hope to see you hopping over there. Hi, Ren. And thank you for coming, Morg. Thank you again. Thank you to Buddy. Thank you to everybody who joined, super chatted, gave gifts. That was Halloween Mom and I saw Storm. I think Storm got a one of the memberships. So hopefully you'll come over too. And hi, Tyler. Oh, that was so sweet, Lee. Lee just, okay, Spectral just.
And it was Nelson. Yeah, awesome.
Spectral. Okay.
Awesome.
So we're going to see you over there just in a few minutes. We'll be in as soon as we can.
Thank you, everyone. All right. We appreciate you guys. Have a good night.
Bye, you guys. And Philip will be back for the next one. Okay, take care. See you in a few minutes.
Thank you.